Welcome to the Tuesday, April 14, 2026 session meeting of the Board of Calvert County Commissioners. We're going to have our invocation. Pastor Steve Forrester with Life Church in Huntington. If you please come forward for that, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think we could all use some prayer today. Amen?
Amen.
All right. Heavenly Father, we come before you in the name of your Son, Jesus, Lord, and we're reminded that your word declares in Jeremiah 29:7 that the children of God should work for the peace and the prosperity of the land wherein they dwell. And Lord, I thank you for the men and women in this place who are doing just that, answering the call to work on behalf of the citizens of Calvert County, Lord, a county that we dearly love. Lord, I pray that you would give wisdom, because you promised in James 1 to do just that, and give wisdom to anyone who asks of it from you. And Lord, we ask for that wisdom today. May you be honored in everything that is said and done, and may you just be with these commissioners and these leaders here today, Lord. Thank you. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor, for coming out. Would you like to say anything about your church? You have any upcoming events or what y'all have going on?
We're really excited about the number of young people that we have at the church. We have a midweek program for boys and girls. 7 p.m. We serve about 150 kids on those nights there, and have a youth ministry of about 50 or 60 kids on Sunday nights. So just seeing a lot of growth with young families and young kids. So, yeah. But thank you for the opportunity to share.
It's very good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Takes us to approval of the agenda.
Mr. President, I move that we approve and adopt the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda as submitted. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Public service announcements. There's a joint special meeting of the Calvert County Planning Commission and Environmental Commission to discuss proposed tax amendments Wednesday, April 15th at 7 p.m. at the County Administration Building. The meeting will be streamed live on Calvert County YouTube channel and on Comcast channels 99 and 1070 HD. The public may participate in person or virtually via Teams. Call-in information is available on our website. There's a Public Works paper shredding event. Department of Public Works Solid Waste Division will host a free paper shredding event for county residents and businesses to shred confidential or sensitive information Saturday, April 18th. The event will be held from 9 to 1, rain or shine, at the Mount Hope Convenience Center located at 96 Pushall Station Road in Sunderland. Businesses are allowed up to 5 banker boxes of paper. There is no limit for residents. Proof of county residency is required. Certificates of destruction are available upon request. For more information about recycling events, contact Department of Public Works Solid Waste Division at 410-326-0210 or visit www.calvertcountymd.gov/recycle. Takes us to our animal shelter animal of the week. So Lindell Kelly Animal Shelter, they bring in a pet of the week, and if that pet is adopted between now and our next meeting date, the adoption fees are all waived. Thank you. Who do we have with us this morning?
Today we have Rocky. He's been with us for about 2 months now. When he first came in, he was very skinny. He's put on some weight, and he's doing really well now. So it was a matter of he just kind of kept going home to home and wasn't in a settled place. So he was very stressed out. But he's a little over a year old. Very energetic, if you can't tell. It's hard to get him to kind of calm down. He loves to snuggle. His favorite thing would just be to jump up on you and curl into you, which he's been doing with a lot of people as they walk by. But he would thrive at a home with a yard where he can just run. I had him out this morning, and he was just zooming back and forth. It's his favorite thing to do. He's not too into fetching, but he loves a good squeaky toy stuffed animal. So he is good to go. He is already neutered, vaccinated, microchipped, and ready to go into his forever home. So if anybody is interested, please come on down and visit him. He would make a very good companion for somebody. So, and you can't adopt, like always, volunteering, donations, everything's a big help.
Do you know what kind of dog it is? Look like it has some bird dog in it.
He might. We don't know. I think he's just a mix of a lot. You can see like the blue eyes in him too. So I don't know if he has a little bit of husky, a little bit of maybe a little bit of terrier, pit bull terrier. But he does look like he has a little bit of bird dog maybe. So yeah.
How's he do with the other dogs?
We're not too sure. He seems fine. He hasn't had like a play date with another dog yet, but he hasn't shown any issues that we're concerned about.
Okay.
But as with any dogs, you know, if somebody comes to adopt a dog, we do require to have a dog-on-dog meet and greet if you have a dog in your home, just to see the initial how
Absolutely.
it's going to be.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be a little different once they're in your home versus at the shelter, but you know, that first initial gives us a little bit of an idea. So, but yeah, no, he's a good boy. You ready? Yeah.
So it's also National Animal Control Officer Week.
Yes, it is.
So-
Yes, it is.
Thank your colleagues for doing the jobs that they do. It's very important.
They're amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Heard they had a tough night. Or
Did.
yesterday afternoon.
Did.
Yeah.
It was pretty rough.
Hopefully
was
that
rough.
all comes together the right way.
Yeah, we're working on all that today. So,
Good.
all right.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Guys have a good week.
You too.
And it's also National Dispatcher Week. So if you know anybody's a dispatcher and you run into them, please feel free to make sure you thank them for their service, whether it be county, state, sheriff's office. We all have them. So they have an important job to answer that 911 call when we call. So I see the next thing on the agenda is public hearing. Does we have to wait until 10:30 for that?
No, sir. This public hearing was advertised for 10 a.m.
Okay, I'm just making sure. It's Department of Parks and Recreation, Marley Run Recreation Area, Resolution Amendment. Mr. Branham, Amanda? Morning.
Good morning.
Amanda Stillwagon, Park and Safety Division Chief.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Sperling. I'm the park planner.
All right, so we're here to talk to you about the Marley Run Recreation Area Buffer. So I'll go through the memo and then we can do some questions after.
Okay.
Background, Marley Run Recreation Area located at 1455 Merrifield Lane in Huntingtown with frontage along Cox Road is a 13.83 acre park featuring 3 baseball, softball fields. The recreation area was originally established under Resolution Number 51-89, which designated the surrounding property as a transfer zone and included several conditions, including Condition 9, establishing a 100-foot no-cut, no-clear buffer along Cox Road, with required replanting in cleared areas. Resolution number 3-92 subsequently modified several of these conditions, including Condition 8, requiring the construction and conveyance to Calvert County of a multi-purpose ball field. Today, the facility is managed by the Department of Parks and Recreation and continues to serve the community as an active recreation site. Discussion. After nearly 3 decades of continuous use, Marley Run Recreation Area requires significant upgrades to ensure safety, functionality, and ADA compliance. Design work shows that expanding and formalizing the existing gravel parking lot, which already encroaches into the buffer, as well as completing the necessary grading and stormwater improvements, will require additional disturbance within the 100-foot buffer. The project also includes regrading the steep berm between the parking lot and Cox Road to address ongoing maintenance challenges. To support these improvements, staff recommends amending Condition 9 of Resolution Number 3-92 by removing the 100-foot no-cut, no-clear buffer while maintaining the existing 35-foot setback. This revision would provide the needed space for site work while preserving vegetation front along Cox Road. Approval should also allow grading and replanting within the reduced setback to complete necessary construction and stabilization. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended this adjustment at its February 18, 2026 work session and forwarded the amendment for board consideration at a public hearing. Fiscal impact. Design services were procured from COA Barrett for $99,000. The free balance of Marley Run Rec CIP-000136 is currently $1,195,000. An additional $2,500,000 was requested in FY27 CIP funding. This is projected to cover all construction costs. Conclusion, the Department of Parks and Recreation requests that the Board of County Commissioners conduct a public hearing on the proposed amendments to Resolution 3-92. In accordance with Local Government Article 9-105, any action by the board must be deferred until at least 10 days after the hearing. So, I know that's a lot in there, but it's really quite simple. When we purchased that property, the Marley Run rec area, there is a 100-foot no cut, no clear buffer from Cox Road, and there's a 35-foot setback off of the road. We want to maintain the 35-foot setback. We'll never build, we'll never get that close to Cox. But in order for us to take the existing gravel parking lot that's there and widen it to code, put in curb and gutter, address ADA, and soften that berm as best we can, just to help us for the longevity and sustainability of maintaining it, it requires us to remove this 100-foot buffer. And we have met with the consultant. You know, the engineers are working on this, but they're kind of at a standstill until we get the final decision that we can get the approval to remove this 100-foot buffer. It was their recommendation to remove as well. When Steph and I presented at the Planning Commission, you know, they were in full support of it. So are there any questions that you all have? I'm sure you've all been to Marley and seen that topography is, we're bound by topography at that location.
I think it's
And just
long
from
overdue.
continuous maintenance of the mowers, you know, the hills are just rutted so badly, it's become dangerous.
Do you know why the original 100-foot buffer was in place?
Perhaps the county attorney could speak to this. It has
Yeah.
something to do, it was a transfer zone. I think it was an old kind of transfer zone whenever Marley was established. And so it was just sort of written into it initially.
And I don't even think they don't even do these anymore.
That was before my time, I believe.
Mine too, I think.
Sure.
So yes, it had something to do with the transfer zone and what the planning commission and all of that and what they determined would be appropriate for at that time for the development of Marley Run and what have you. So, like I said, I don't know all the particulars. I wish I did. To share with
Attorney
you, but-
Mattingly at the Planning Commission seemed to say that they don't really handle, they don't really do the transfer resolution like this anymore.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it's been so long ago. Yeah.
And we're currently encroached in the buffer now. I mean, the current gravel parking lot that is there, on the original site plan that was done for this, it showed an area that was grass overflow parking, and over the years, we've put gravel down. But as you know, we have to address stormwater there. And the only way for me to address stormwater is to pave that parking lot so I can get it in to infrastructure, and we can outfall the water out behind the lower baseball field. Because, you know, water will find a way, and it has. So we're really battling erosion. So in addition to doing the parking lot, we will also be addressing stormwater on site, and we will be regrading those baseball fields so that they can drain appropriately as well.
And the other part of that project is the backfield.
So that backfield, this was probably, I would say at least 4 or 5 years ago. We had a vegetation removal buffer that we did where we went on the backside of the lower field and we removed all of the vegetation so that we could try to stabilize it by basically growing grass on that hillside, because the footers of that outfield fence were starting to show. And it has been successful, and part of that at that time when we did it required us to map all of the existing environmental features on site. So we do have a very current map that shows us all the blue line streams, and so that's beneficial when the consultant's working on the design now. But yes, when we go, in a perfect world, you know, home plate would be higher than your outfield. So we're trying to get these fields graded appropriately so that we can get the water off them and into, basically there'll be a decent amount of stormwater management devices, swims that will be put in.
And total cost of this project's $3.5 million.
It'll actually come in right under 3.
So you have a contingency in this?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
And how long has this project been in the works? It's been a while.
It's been a while. The way, when we were budgeting this through CIP, we budgeted the design. We got the design money. Then last year, we got $1 million, which is sitting there, and we needed, at that time, $2 million to do the construction. As you can see, we've added a little additional because it has been in the works for so long to increase the cost, just to make sure that we have enough to do the project.
And what happens if you don't do this?
It's going to be harder and harder to maintain. I mean, like I said, we're maintaining it now, but I've got a couple of guys that cut that, and they're the only ones that cut it. You know, it's not something that you could have. I could have a new seasonal start and say, "Oh, go cut Marley Run." I mean, we're maintaining, but I think that it'll get to the point where we will eventually lose the lower backfield. And I have to say that park is in operation every day.
It is.
Yeah, there's a lot of baseball played there, and soccer too. The first field when you turn in is the one that has a 90-foot diamond on it, the pitching mound. It's a larger field, so we do run soccer practices there as well. Marley's not lit, you know, so we're only in operation during daylight hours. But even yet and still, I mean, Saturdays and Sundays they run a lot out of there.
And this project will also increase accessibility as well, which is kind of
Yes.
challenging
Yes.
at Marley's. So, you know, encroaching into the buffer is kind of imperative for that.
It's definitely a multi-level facility, isn't it?
In more ways than one. Yes.
So at the end of this project, will most of that be taken care of?
Yes, it will be. I mean, the fields will be regraded. There will be a new parking lot, ADA accessibility. So that first field will become fully ADA compliant. So we will have the appropriate pathways to get folks down to watch a game
Good.
and to get to the restroom building. Because the way we are now, when you first turn into Marley, that's technically where our ADA spots are, and the bathhouse is halfway in the parking lot. So we need to regrade that parking lot so that the ADA spots can be located in front of the bathhouse.
It's just a lot of money. People want to know where the money goes. This is where it goes.
Yes, and it seems like it's a lot of money, but I think it's very important, and it's something that we've been asking for quite some time on this project, and I think folks would be very disappointed if we had to lose that location.
Absolutely. I mean, maintaining what we have is our top priority, and this project is just kind of indicative of that.
And we're not fancy at Marley. We operate out of a shed. We have, you know, a concession stand and a restroom building in the front of that. We don't operate the concession stand anymore, but it is a climate-controlled space that my employees who work there can, you know, they can have a little office there with, you know, their laptop and things. But we're not grandiose. We just want to have nice ball fields there for the kids to play.
We have to take care of what we have.
Yes,
Precisely.
Definitely.
yes.
Amanda, for the record, could you please read the public hearing notice, the intro?
I do not have it, I don't think.
All right, I will do that. So there was one public hearing scheduled for today. Public hearing was duly advertised, and a certificate of the publication is going to be made a part of the record. Citizens are invited to provide comment on the public hearing. The sign-up sheet is to my right here, and each of the hearings have a separate comment period, and anyone in person must sign in on the sign-in sheet next to the attorney. And County Attorney, do you mind giving that sheet? Thanks. And so there are no speakers in the room. If anybody is online and would like to speak related to this public hearing, please raise your hand.
No speakers?
Nobody has raised their hand?
Any other discussion amongst us?
Mr. President, I make a motion, we leave the record open for 10 days pursuant to Local Government Article 9-105.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to leave the record open for 9-105. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Takes us to new business, Department of Public Works, 2026 Pump Out Operations and Maintenance Grant Program. Tom Jones.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning.
Staff and citizens of Calvert County, my name is Tom Jones. I am the Deputy Director of DPW for General Services. I am here today to read the memo. Subject is 2026 Pump Out Operation Maintenance Grant Program. If the commissioners are ready, I'll just go ahead and read the memo.
Go ahead.
Background: the Department of Public Works General Services Division seeks to submit grant application to the Department of Natural Resources, which offers an annual grant to support operation and maintenance of marina pump out stations. Discussion. For this grant agreement, the 2026 boating season runs from April 15 to November 15, 2026. This agreement applies only to the 2026 boating season. Upon approval, the Department of Natural Resources will reimburse the county up to $5,000 for eligible pump out expenses incurred during that period. Physical impact. Subject to the availability of federal and state funds, the Department of Natural Resources will reimburse marinas that comply with the grant terms and conditions up to $5,000 for eligible pump-out expenses incurred during that boating season. Conclusion and recommendations. The Department of Public Works, General Services Divisions request the Board of County Commissioners approve submission of the grant application.
We do this every year,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, and has it ever cost us over $5,000?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
No, ma'am.
We just have the one location,
Just one location, yes, sir.
and we charge a fee,
No fee, no, sir.
no fee, so it's free to the,
Free to the public, yes, sir.
gotcha.
And all the records been maintained, Tom, through
Yes,
the
sir.
DNR? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. We actually fill out work request tickets when we go down. When citizens call in or anyone calls in and says something's wrong, we fill out the tickets. So that way, at the end of the year, we have to submit that to the DNR to request the fees or the reimbursement.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Everybody good?
Mr. President, I approve that we submission of the grant application.
Second.
So a motion and a second to approve the submission of the grant application. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That takes us to the consent agenda. There are 4 items on the consent agenda this week. First one's Department of Public Safety grant application, Maryland 911 Board funding request, FY 2027 annual maintenance. And number 2, Department of Community Resources State Health Insurance Assistance Program grant application. Item number 3, Department of Community Resources right of recovery notice for the Calvert Pines renovation project. And item number 4, Department of Community Resources Calvert Pines Senior Center grant reimbursement request letter. Have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we approve and adopt the consent agenda items.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to approve and adopt the consent agenda items. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda items? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Takes us to old business. Before we get into this, I do have some correspondence here I'd like to read. It's a letter from Dr. Newsom to Linda Turney, the county administrator. We are appreciative of interest from members of the Calvert County Board of County Commissioners to appropriate funds to the Calvert County Public Schools for the purchase and installation of 4 turf athletic fields. This memorandum provides us a brief overview of Calvert County Public Schools' intent to include synthetic turf field installations at each county high school in the FY 2028 capital improvement program. Preliminary vendor estimates project a total cost of approximately $10 million. The estimate reflects a turnkey scope of work inclusive of design, permitting, installation, and project closeout. Calvert County Public Schools intends to conduct procurement in compliance with all applicable laws and county requirements. The school system would oversee construction to ensure alignment with instructional, athletic, operational, and student safety needs, while the county would make appropriations directly to Calvert County Public Schools as part of the CIP. Inclusion of these projects in the CIP supports asset stewardship, operational efficiency, and equitable student access. Calvert County Public Schools acknowledges and appreciates the County Commissioner's recommendation to include high school turf field projects in the capital improvement program, and is grateful for county's continued support of our schools, students, and shared community assets. Please let me know if additional information is needed as part of the FY 2028 CIP review process. And again, that's from Dr. Newsom directed to Ms. Linda Turner, County Administrator. That takes us to old business, Department of Finance and Budget, update tax differential rate for the town of North Beach. We have a couple guests here with us. Mayor, welcome. Ms. Vassallo, welcome.
Thank you.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. And you have nice chairs.
You want one? I got it.
I'll go to the surplus building over there.
Melina, would you like to start?
Yes. Good morning. Melina Brookshire, Chief Financial Officer for Calvert County Government. I will go ahead and read the memo
Okay.
you provide. Background. State law allows municipalities to request a reduction in the county property tax paid by their residents based on the premise that town residents also pay municipal property taxes to fund services the county does not provide within town limits. Historically, the Board of County Commissioners meets with the mayors of the county's 2 incorporated towns, Chesapeake and North Beach, to discuss the tax differential rate. The county's real property tax rate for fiscal year 2026 is 0.967 per 100 of assessed value, with no increase proposed for FY 2027. The tax differential rate is an adjustment to the county rate for town residents. The adjustment is intended to reflect the cost savings to the county for services provided by the towns rather than by the county. Following additional discussion and consideration of municipal input during the FY 2027 budget process, staff would like to recommend a tax differential rate consistent with prior year models of a mirrored rate for both towns, resulting in a rate of 36.2 cents per $100 of assessed value for the town of North Beach. Moving forward in FY 2028, staff will partner with both municipalities to evaluate and refine the methodology for calculating tax differentials. The fiscal impact: this is an annual reduction to the county revenues by lowering the tax rate for the town residents. The rationale for this lower tax rate is the savings that the county receives as a result of town-provided services. The tax differential rate is expected to have an impact of approximately $88,000. Staff requests that the board approve an adjusted tax differential rate of 362 cents per $100 for the town of North Beach in FY 2027 budget, reflecting considerations specific to this budget cycle. Staff will return to the board with a refined approach to tax differential calculations for future fiscal years.
So, Mayor, thank you for coming in today. It's good to see you, as always. She read the memo, and we've had some discussion on this prior to, and here we are today.
I appreciate the time to be here. It's 6 weeks to the day that I was not able to be here, so I'm just happy to be here. And I want to take the time to speak on behalf of my residents, my staff, my council, and myself to thank you for this. This is a big deal to our towns, both Chesapeake Beach and North Beach. And it ensures that our residents are not double taxed. And we don't take this lightly. There are municipalities out there that don't have the relationship that we have with our county commissioners, and they're in court every year. And I think this shows that you 5 really understand the importance of supporting us so we don't have a double taxation to our residents. I want to personally thank Commissioner Grasso and Commissioner Ireland and Linda Turner, County Administrator, for meeting with us to discuss it, to have a great conversation so we can make sure we're all on the same page. This is a major deal and really affects our residents' bottom line of survival with the increase of electric and all the fees that are going up. This helps them get through another year. And we don't take it lightly. We want to publicly thank all of you for doing this, because it does make a difference. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
No, I just wanted to thank you guys for coming in. You know, there's a lot of misnomers that they think that the beach gets all this funding from all these things, and it doesn't. You know, and there's a lot of expense incurred. I mean, it's a heavy tourist area spot, and you guys do provide law enforcement and so many other services and taking care of, all of the things that a town needs with things break in the water and there's just so many things. Those things aren't free, as we've seen just with Marley Park, how expensive things can get. So it's important, that the beach has everything it needs, and you guys have done a phenomenal job. Going back to remember when I was a kid, to where it's one of my favorite spots to go to. I love the beach.
Good memory.
Yeah. Except George Jones used to tease me, though, because every time I showed up in a suit, he goes, "Nobody wears a suit to the beach."
No. I'm wearing a jacket out of respect for you five.
No shorts and flip-flops.
Maybe next year.
Yeah. So how's the beach this year?
Perfect. We're getting ready. We do bring 75 to 125,000 people to our beach in 135 days. And you're right, our revenue stream is property taxes. We don't get a sales tax. There's so many things we do not get that's not about today. But this really does help our residents get through another year. And I'd love to say lifetime, but just another year, because we know next year costs are going to go up again. We're seeing it with the budget from the state. We're seeing it from all over the board. So this is huge for our residents, and we cannot thank you enough.
Mr. Mayor, you get any state funding for your programs at the beach?
We get some, but not much. What we found is sometimes a state program costs you more money, which I'm sure y'all are very aware of that. So our main revenue source is property taxes. So that's why we look at it. We're very concerned about our expenditures. We have 18 staff members. Summertime, we'll bring on another 30 to 50 part-timers for the beach, just to handle the influx. We have our farmers market that opens up on Saturday. We have so many events, but we scour the market to see what's out there in funding. We do go to Annapolis. I was there last week with my hands out trying to get something from the sales tax. But we try to do the best we can with the money we have.
So as I said the other day, after a tough winter, I see you replaced your boardwalk and pickets and railings, and just so the public knows, throw a rough dollar figure out there as to what you've had to spend on the beach to maintain just that part of it.
We have a CIP just like y'all do,
right.
And we sit down, we try to project out. I mean, the railings alone was probably 100, 125 at the end by the time it's done. And what people don't understand is we bring so many Calvert Countyans there, and also outside that walk that boardwalk. Mm-hmm. Just a couple numbers. We go through over 10,000 mutt a year. Think about that. We go through 2 boxes of bones every week. The amount of people, we have 52 trash cans we empty 4 times a day. We could just keep going on because it's such a destination. And yes, Commissioner Hart, I grew up in the beach in the 70s and 80s, and it was a different type of destination back then.
Yes, it was.
Now everybody wants to come to the beach, and we want everybody. They're guests of ours. We don't look at them as tourists. They're guests. We want them there. But there's a lot of money to keep that beach looking like it does when you bring that many people to we're 0.34 square miles. Mm-hmm. We're not big. Mm-hmm. So everything that you do for us, we truly appreciate, and we will always thank you for it.
And one more thing, if you would touch on your beach restoration project and what has that done for you?
The beach restoration, are you talking about the oyster beds and so forth?
Well, you're getting ready to move forward with
Yes,
that.
we are. We're getting ready. So we are known to flood. And over the years, when you have a perfect storm, and that is high tide, the wind's in the right direction, and over 3/4 of an inch of rain, remember this, for every 1 inch of rain, outside of North Beach town proper, Calvert County North Beach donates 1 million gallons of water to us. So we're battling the largest bay in America with the rainwater, with the wind. So this program, we're working with soil conservation. We're hoping not only is it going to help restore the bay, continue to improve the bay, but it's going to help break down the wave actions that are destroying our boardwalk around 7th Street to a corner we call Hatch's Corner. Gene Hatch lived there. And then from 7th Street to 11th Street. We have storms sometimes so strong that it picks up our Jersey walls and moves them. And that's last year. We're not talking 20 years ago.
All anybody has to do is drive through there and look where the heat pumps are.
Yes.
They're all elevated.
Yes.
And when I used to drive truck through there and deliver, I remember going to one establishment that there was 2 feet of water in there and stuff was floating. I mean, you battle storms. I mean, Calvert takes a beating. I mean, but like I say, coming off that Chesapeake Bay like that, I mean, that is.
But we are finished. We're in the process of finishing up the design phase, and I want to give soil conservation a huge shout out. They are so committed, and it's just refreshing to sit down with an organization that is really trying to figure out what's best for the community, best for the bay, best for our environment, and they bring all that together. When we meet with them, sometimes they provide a fire hose, and I'm like, all right, you got to slow it down a little bit for all of us to understand. But they are absolutely amazing to work with. So. Hopefully you'll see some updates soon, and I'm excited about the oyster beds and so forth out there.
I'd like to see them keeping on going all the way down.
That's their goal, the whole Calvert County.
Yeah. I need it on Cove Point.
So, Mayor, I would like to thank you and your whole staff for keeping North Beach beautiful like it is.
It takes a village between our residents, our guests, and our staff. We have a small staff, but they do a lot of work. So thank you so much. I'll let them know.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Well,
you.
it truly is a walkable town. Frank is kicking his butt that he did not take my advice and buy 8 years ago.
I hear that a lot.
Because you are now the place to be. And I tell you, 3 years ago, my dad, who spent a lot of time in North Beach as a young man and met your men in blue many times. I drove him through there 3 years ago before he passed. His head was on a swivel.
Oh.
What a beautiful place, he said. I never thought I'd see this from when I was a kid. It's a jewel. And as you've reminded me, the only walkable town in Calvert County, you go.
We're just saying.
There you go.
It's a lifestyle. If you want to know what it's like living in North Beach, it's a lifestyle.
It is.
So thank you. You're all welcome anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you Saturday.
Absolutely.
Oh, and I like the, not that I have a problem, I like the new brewery, the small brewery.
Yes.
They are so nice, so accommodating. And when we come down there for First Fridays, just an added bonus. And Calvert County, you meet everybody coming and going. It's nice to go in there. And I saw people I hadn't seen in years come in there.
Well, good.
So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion. We approve an adjusted tax rate of .362 per $100 for the town of North Beach in the FY 2027 budget, reflecting considerations specific to this budget cycle.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to approve an adjusted tax rate of .362 per 100 for the town of North Beach in FY 2027 budget, reflecting considerations specific to this budget cycle. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a good one.
Have a great day.
Safe trip back.
Takes us to our next item. It's a work session. Morning, Danielle.
Good morning. Oh, that is loud. Okay. I'm going to forgo reading the memo. This is a continuation of our conversation last Tuesday on debt and the capital projects. You directed staff to talk to our financial advisors, specifically about a 15 to 20-year amortization, as well as the impact of a AAA to AA rating change if we were to deplete part of our fund balance. Davenport, our financial advisors, was able to get back to us. They are wonderful to work with. I'll speak to the 15 to 20-year amortization first. The adjustment to a 20-year amortization structure does provide some flexibility, approximately $2.5 million annually. That is based on a static environment. That is, if every market condition continues exactly as it is today. They predicted that out for the bond sale upcoming, as well as what they anticipate our next bond sale would be as well. $2.5 million annually in relief. It adds $26.2 million in additional debt over the life of the bond.
Can you repeat that number again?
It would add $26.2 million in additional interest payments over the life of the bond.
And that's going from 20 to 25.
From 15 to 20.
15 to 20, okay.
From 15 to 20.
And those are just for long-term projects?
That was looking at the entire bond sale. There are some projects we would not be able to switch to 20-year because they wouldn't match the life of the asset.
Right.
But from a policy perspective, this raises a few concerns. The benefit is relatively modest and temporary, while the cost is permanent and compounding. We are effectively shifting costs to future taxpayers and future boards, which may not align with the useful life of all of the assets being financed. Extending amortization increases our exposure to long-term market uncertainty, particularly given that the current analysis assumes a static rate environment. And the backloading of debt service reduces flexibility in those out years, which could constrain future capital planning.
And Daniel, Moody's threshold is 35, is that correct? That's been the shift, right? The other two are 17, 18.
Are you shifting the conversation to the AAA bond rating versus AA? Because that's a separate conversation.
Are you going to that, or are you just?
Yes, this is specifically looking at that 15-year to 20-year amortization on bonds.
Okay, gotcha. So you looked at all the projects that have a life expectancy over 20 years, and the findings was it would save us 2.5 in authority per year, but at the end would add 26 million to the cost.
Correct.
For those projects.
Correct.
Right. Which is why I never liked that.
The modest wiggle room we would gain initially, it does not equate to or solve the looming future cost problems. 2.5 in the scope of the CIP is a very, very small number.
That's per year?
Yes. On the reserve side...
So 20 years, that's what, 50 million?
It only saves that from 28 to 42. When we switch to 43 to 48, our interest payments get larger because it's a bell-shaped curve. So it's only for those first 15, 28, 42, 15 years. So after that, the interest rates get larger.
What is the ratio then? You say it's the first 15 years?
Correct.
It would be the same as that, but if you went from 15 to 20, I guess it's almost like an old balloon payment, or like they used to call them in arms, things of that nature.
From 2043 to 2048, we would be spending about $63.4 million in interest payments.
If you did the entire bond request. Right.
The next two bond requests, that's not looking at 2020.
Right.
That's not looking at 2030, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. That's another 15 years of projects as well. So that's looking at just these two specific bond issuances. If you were to continue that out, it compounds exponentially.
Right. So you're right. And that's the thing where it's not like if you're bonding, say, in HVAC, you're doing 15 years, you're bonding a building that's going to be there if you want others. So we would have to almost get a scalpel, cut those out, and see individually what those projects look like over the life of the bond, correct?
Correct.
So what's the total amount for those projects that have a life over 20 years that you use for this calculation?
We use the entire projected bond sale. So it would be 27, 28, 29.
Right, but
and then
Commissioner Hart says a lot of those projects wouldn't qualify anyway.
that was what Davenport used for their structure, was how much we were looking at bonding. It does not include the enterprise fund, but it is looking at the general government projects.
Right, but that's just if you, every single thing that you.
Right. But if you took them out, it would also reduce the amount of the 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
And
right, that's what we're saying, is that looking at the entire bond sale, you only get $2.5 million in wiggle room.
Do it that way, so I just wanted a realistic picture because we wouldn't bond everything that way. My question at the time was only projects like, take the sheriff's office. That building's over 100 years old. Okay, so you know, if you were doing that project, you know they're going to be there longer than 15 years. Where in HVAC, you might only be there every 15 years, you might replace that. So I was curious, what did that picture look like on a project that would be there generational? So with Davenport just giving you this blanket overview, it's not what I was asking for. I don't know about anybody else, but it's because we just wouldn't do it that way. We wouldn't bond everything longer just to do it.
So if you're looking at, if it's $2.5 million in this wiggle room for approximately $200 million in bonds being sold, if you broke that down to $1 million, it would be $100,000 saved per. I would have to get out of. I wouldn't
even try to guess at that because the way the interest is amortized, I would. Prefer.
But that's what we're saying, sir, is that in a static environment, that's what we're looking at right now. If we went to bond sale, we would have a premier interest rate, 4.5% to 5.5 to 5%. That's what she used. Davenport used 5% when they modeled this out. In an ideal environment, you are only getting $2.5 million of wiggle room for that first 15 years on $200 million of debt. When you break that down to a tiny fraction of that per project, the wiggle room does not equate.
I understand what you're saying. Like I say, my question was at the time, though, because other jurisdictions do that.
Correct.
So my curiosity was, why are they doing that? What does it look like?
That's a policy decision of those jurisdictions.
I get that. I just want to know what the numbers are. Right? It has to be a reason.
The numbers are dependent on the market environment.
I get that.
And sometimes they'll do that to get some wiggle room to do a project.
Right, and that's
they don't think about the long-term impact.
And also too, then it goes back to into my question I have later is, so Moody's at the 35%. Is that a hard line? Because I also have heard that if your OPEB is fully funded like ours is, there's also a variance in there. So do they go to like say 32% or 33% if your OPEB is maintained the way ours is?
When we spoke to Davenport about the bond rating specifically, there's a little bit, because there's more than one point that is being awarded on.
It's at 35.
They're looking more at your volatility and your stability over time. So it depends on all of the other factors that are in play. If you decrease the fund balance and you also have instability on other components, that's going to score lower than it would if everything else was stable.
Right. So if let's just say if your OPEB's fully funded like ours is, and they went to 30, then you would still meet Moody's threshold, but giving you an additional 5% more that you could use out of your fund balance.
I am not sure on that specific scenario. Davenport did not anticipate modeling out that scenario.
Yeah, and that's the deep dive that I'm looking for, because the other was just this broad scope. Well, you just do 35 across the board, but there's so much to it than that. And that's where, as times get harder financially, you're going to have to get more creative, and you're going to have to get a scalpel out instead of just an overview. And my whole learning life is, why does another person do that? So that's why I question, length on generational projects, and then also too, how flexible is that threshold? So if the way our cash reserves, obviously, and there's a long list, it's not that easy, but that's why I was curious, is that 35 etched in stone, or do they go, well, because your OPEB, and very few jurisdictions are fully funded like ours is, so does that take us to 34, 33? And even 1% on large sums like that are huge to give you more disposable income to maybe buy a project. And then what do you, just to pay cash for it, and instead of putting it in the CIP and paying interest on it, how much would you save then?
It would still be in the CIP. You're negotiating general fund versus
debt. But you're not
debt.
going to sell bonds for it if you
it's
just
still
pay,
in the CIP.
Oh, I get that, but you're still not going to borrow money. You're going to pay for it, and so therefore you're not paying interest. The CIP is just a capital improvement project. It's written in pencil. So if anybody's watching, it's not like something goes in the CIP and there's a separate account for that. We are still paying it through general funds. There's no other way we generate income. So we're going to borrow money and we're going to pay that payment. And that's why I'm saying is, if your threshold isn't 35, if it's 34 and it's 33, and you have this pot of money, it may be something you want to explore to pay for something outright cash instead of paying interest on it.
Correct, but you would need to adjust. Go ahead, Melina.
Yeah, Melina Brookshire, Chief Financial Officer for Calvert County Government. We, in fact, do use the OPEB for our fund balance. And I just wanted to also go back to the multi-series question, because you're right, there are various ways to do this. But for a municipality, that's not something we would typically do, is issue multi-series. There's a lot of risk that would be there, and it's not a typical way. It is an option, but the risk of we'd have redundant fees, some of the cost efficiencies we would lose. But we can provide that for you. But it is a very risky thing for a municipality.
I'm just curious, because other jurisdictions they don't cookie cutter it across. They actually look at things that are generational, and that's how they decide whether they go a 15 or 20 or what have you, and being, like I said, this whole thing's generated because I think we said the threshold went from 17 or 18% with Fitch and what is it, S&P, I believe, yeah, and then where Moody's went to 35. So to double their standard like that, that's a lot of cash to look at. And so if that's what they're doing, then that causes us to maybe have to look at how we do things a little differently instead of just they change the game to maybe we have to adjust. That's all I'm saying. I just want to give us options. I don't want to lock us into this is how we always do it no matter what, when that's not how they do it anymore. So since they've changed, maybe we have to. And I just want to explore, is there other options to use? Because even 1% on that money is a lot of money.
So does Moody's treat everybody the same when they rank?
The Moody's standards are the same across the board.
For everybody.
Every
So
component is weighted differently in the Moody's scorecard.
Right.
And Davenport can do a beautiful job illustrating how the scorecards, they've shown us.
But Commissioner Hart's talking about varying percentages. So do they negotiate that with every county based on your, or is it a set fee across the board?
Is the 35% a set? Yes,
Yes.
that is set.
They're holding that to everybody to that same thing?
Yes, that is the scorecard. That is
35% for everybody?
35% is their standard.
So you're saying there's not a variable in there based on...
It is weighted differently in the scorecard. So if you have other strengths in your scorecard, you can offset that by a little bit. But the 35% is the standard for the fund balance.
No, what she's saying is you can go lower being on how it's weighted.
No.
Is that correct? Or are you saying there's no way to get better than 35? Is
There's no way to
35 their threshold?
There's no way to go below the 35%.
So
Is there
there's no way to
criteria?
get to 34 or 33. That is etched in stone, no matter what your reserves or OPEB looks like or anything, right?
You would lose out on scoring on that factor of the scorecard.
But that's not what I'm asking.
No, that's not what he's asking. He's asking the same thing I am. They're
'Cause I don't
holding
know,
everybody
so that's
to
why I'm
35
asking.
I know. They hold everybody to 35%.
Correct.
You're talking about how they rank you and the different variables they use to get you there. But
To the overall score.
he's arguing that if we have a strong OPEB and a strong fund balance, maybe they'll only hold us to 30%.
Will they relax that 35?
But you're saying that they're holding everybody to 35%.
Correct.
Yes.
And there is no vehicle to get you under 35.
I'm truly having a hard time comprehending the question when the standard is 35%.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and that's the answer.
Yes.
The answer is the standard is
But like I say, from
35%.
what I've been researching, that they have a variance in there, and I'm just asking, is that valid? Can you ask Davenport, okay, is that 35 etched in stone? Is there a vehicle with how fiscally conservative we've been to where we can achieve a 34 or 33? Because they just went from 17 or 18 to this 35. So this is new to me, and that's why I'm asking, is, as Commissioner Hand said, is that a hard line 35, no matter what you have? Or this jurisdiction isn't fully funded at OPEB and we are. So they take that as stability and go, well, because you're a better credit risk, we'll go 34.
But there could be other variables.
And
I think is
there's
what
many
Daniel-
variables in
Danielle's
that,
talking
and
about,
that's
yeah.
what I'm asking.
Yeah.
So commissioners, when we did meet with Davenport, Linda Turner, County Administrator, we did ask the question, what would happen if we fell below the 35%, because we were curious on that answer. So that puts you in a category where the bond rating agency would be watching you and putting additional criteria. I mean, it's a multiple criteria that they're looking at. So it puts you more on a watch. And as you recall, we're one of 10 in the state of Maryland, one of 111 who have the AAA bond rating from all three agencies. So it would definitely put us on a watch when it came to going before them at the end of the year.
Well, and you would go on a watch in the past if you were at
Correct.
So that you had got a AAA, say, the year before. And then all of a sudden you had some catastrophic thing, and you could explain it. So they would not hold you penalty to that because you could explain what happened. Hey, you had a weather event, you had this, that, and the other, so it was explained. but then they would watch to make sure that it was a one-time thing. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, is during their criterias, just like if you were applying for a loan, if you had assets of much more than what you were asking for, helps your credit score, say on a personal level. And that has been my understanding, is that from what I've been told, that 35 is not hard, like no matter how good you are, how bad you are, that 35 is not flexible. And that's my question.
Well, I believe Danielle's answered the question the best that she can. Is there any way you can reach out to Davenport just for clarification?
With the level of questions that are being asked about scoring, I would suggest Davenport come in and do a presentation ahead of the bond, which they would have. They
Yes,
would be doing
absolutely.
approaching the bond rating.
Absolutely.
The context of the presentation about debt last week and now this week is in relation to this capital projects cycle. And that is when you're getting into the variance of independent bond sales going out in those out years, that is a broad level policy discussion. That is obviously the purview of the Board of County Commissioners. But I am not a financial advisor. Davenport is going to be your best source for that information, and I would suggest asking that question directly to
So
them.
if staff could work on putting that together, that'd be great. And also, when we go to Annapolis for bonding authority, we go to Annapolis with specific projects, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
If you look at the legislation and the letters that we sent and the legislative requests we sent, we submitted general capital projects, those are our governmental projects, and our enterprise fund projects. Right now, they are set at 15-year bonds and 20-year bonds.
So like next year, going forward with 2 firehouses and...
We would be seeking bonding authority for fiscal years 27 and hopefully also the projections for 28, especially those multi-phased projects like the firehouses and the sheriff's
So there
office.
again, when we go to Annapolis, we are asking for specific projects.
We would be giving them a list of specific projects in legislative authority.
Okay.
Back to Commissioner Hart, bond discussion. Commissioner Hart's right, we have a very strong OPEB, but I think the bond raters have pointed out, at least in my entire time here, that we are a high risk because we depend on 2 facilities for commercial tax
I have
base.
said that.
And so that's why I think that the OPEB gets offset when they're ranking us, because they say, what if? We're getting $80 million from 2 facilities. What if one of those were to close? How would you cover that gap? And the other issue is, for at least one facility, the depreciation is going to start kicking in pretty heavily once the next pilot comes in. So I think that's what we've been hearing constantly from the bond raters also, is we have very little commercial base in Calvert County, except for those 2 facilities. Because I think I've been told that we collect about $4 million in personal property tax from all the businesses in Calvert County other than those 2 facilities, and those 2 facilities are contributing $65 or $70 million in personal property tax.
Oh, we're top heavy.
Oh,
And they brought
that's
that up,
the risk.
but they've also said too, also controlling growth was also a positive factor in there because of the strain on services and infrastructure. So it's not a simple thing, and that's where I say I would be curious for Jen and I forget gentlemen from Davenport
Yeah.
to come down and
It's Susan now.
Yeah.
So when do you think you can get that set up?
We'll put the request in with Jen and
Okay.
maybe in the next couple of weeks. I just
Joe.
want to note
Jen and Joe.
Jen and Susan now.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What happened to Joe? Never mind.
So we did have a chart from Davenport that they shared with us. So the national AAA median for the average fund balance ratio is 47.3%. The Maryland AAA median is 42.8%. And when you look at the top 10 throughout the state of Maryland, we are not the highest. They range anywhere from 50.8%, 64.4%, and there's even 71.3% for fund balance.
And that's total fund balance, not just discretionary. That's everything.
Correct. Just for perspective.
They're making it tough.
They are.
Correct.
Did you have anything else?
Yes, can I talk about capital projects?
Absolutely.
Specifically for fiscal year 27? Given the time frame between last meeting and this meeting, we did have conversations individually. One of the first motions that we would like to make is to move the commissioner's recommended budget hearing to May 12th. From May 5th, that gives us time to print the books, make sure that they are good to go. They get reviewed by CMR and our office. They get into your hands. We would like to make that request to have the commissioner's recommended budget hearing on May 12th in the evening instead of May 5th. Additionally, we looked at a number of projects that had either asked for additional funding in FY27 or new funding, turf fields being one of them. You read the memo from Dr. Newsom earlier. We are slating that $10 million right now in FY28 per the BOE's request. Additionally, we had the Cove Point Lighthouse. They had a statement of work come back from the lighthouse restoration company that they've been working with. They needed an additional $237,000 to go with the $250,000 that they had requested. We are looking currently to use county administration building bond funding that is remaining. That has to be expended by November of this year in order to start depreciating on the asset that is this building. So we would be looking to move that bond funding to some of these projects that we can accomplish quickly. Cove Point Lighthouse is an example. Armory Pavilion, $2.8 million for Armory Pavilion, and the sheriff's office getting the crime lab's conceptual design started, so using that bond funding for that. We also had some additional apparatus submitted by the Fire Rescue Commission, an additional command vehicle, a Rescue 5, and a tower truck for 2. So that was an additional $3.4 million. We are looking to use capital contingency funds. So that's pay-go that has been swept when projects close out to fund those additional apparatus. The remaining ask for the FY27 capital budget was from St. Leonard Company 7 for the new facility. They did ask to be moved up from fiscal year 2030. The recommendation from staff is to keep Company 3's design in FY27, move Company 7 to finalize their design, so that's $600,000 up. So we'd have $1 million for Company 3's design, $600,000 for Company 7's. Construction of Company 7 in FY28 and 29, and currently placeholding Company 3's construction in those out years where Company 7 originally was. If we have additional revenue, we can move them up because the design would be done.
Are we voting on this right now?
I need an answer so I can put it into the commissioner.
These timelines to get it in my head because things have moved in position. I got just a blank screen is all I have. Is that what you? Let me see if I.
Yeah, pull up.
Let me see if I can get.
Pull up last meeting's big picture major capital projects.
For the meeting before.
Yes.
Danielle, while they're doing that, the money for the turf fields that is going to be in 28.
Yes, ma'am.
Will that raise our MOE to the Board of Elections?
Capital projects are not included in
That's
maintenance
not
of effort.
included. Excellent.
Yes.
Another thing, what you were saying, because Company 7, which is St. Leonard,
yes,
they have their design.
Yeah, we can,
they've done an awful lot of work.
Yes.
And we're offering now to move them to the head of the class.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And the fire equipment, just for the record, the fire service goes through a very extensive process for replacement of apparatus.
Yes, the staff recommended budget included the original apparatus review committee's recommendations, which was for the 3 command vehicles. They did go back to the apparatus review committee and have them relook at some of the apparatus, and so they did add those additional 3.
Right, and they had a much larger request in at the beginning, but they narrowed that down, but then they went back and did a reevaluation and came up with those other couple items.
Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure everybody knows we just don't willy-nilly go out and buy new stuff just because,
No, sir. That is recommended by a committee and works through our fleet maintenance as well as the Fire Rescue Commission.
Right, there's a committee made up of experience-based individuals that go over that equipment with a fine-tooth comb and do testing and to verify that it's no longer, because it needs to be replaced. Because at least I know of the rescue at 5 and the tower at 2 have both been rehabbed at least once.
And they are looking at lead times. That is another reason that they're looking at ordering them earlier. It does take them a significant period of time to get both of those large apparatus.
Yeah, if people don't know,
procured.
ever since COVID, fire apparatus is up to 18 months from the time you order it before you get it. Ambulances are 14 months.
And Commissioner Hance, I had a question for you. In the last meeting, Chief Anderson was informed on the movement, correct?
So yeah, because we've been back and forth, most of you know.
Yep, so I just want to bring that conversation
Commissioner
out.
Hart's been fighting very hard for Solomon's, but this process has been going on for years. These processes always take years. Everybody knows I belong to Prince Frederick. I think it took us 20 years to get the new fire station. So none of this stuff happens fast. But over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been increased activity with St. Leonard's and Solomon's. And as Commissioner Grasso pointed out, St. Leonard's already has a design almost completely done. And Solomon's has not started on their design yet. So it just didn't seem, when you have, we have found funding to move forward with one, it didn't seem fair to push the one out that's almost ready to go and put one in front of it that doesn't have a design yet, because all that stuff takes time, especially for Company 3 moving to the new location. They want state access to Route 4, which we know sometimes State Highway can be a little challenging when they're giving up entrances and their design. So, as Director Cosgrove had pointed out in our earlier discussion, that, it would be really hard to have Solomon's ready to begin construction in January of 27, which is right around the corner. And so, yes, I did reach out to, since I'd been working on as president the last 3 or 4 years, I did reach out to President Anderson, just said, practically it just makes sense. And that as long as we didn't pull back their funding for design and they continue to work on design, so that when Company 7's building is complete, we can move right into construction of Company 3. He believed his membership could support that, but others may have different information.
And like you said, Company 7 was 80% done in design.
Yeah, it's something like 75 or 80%
Yeah.
complete.
Danielle, let me ask you something, because I never mind. Okay, the design is in motion. It's almost complete. Also, St. Leonard owns their own property. Could you give me the timeline when we are going to start building for them again, please?
Director Cosgrove?
I'm going to ask Director Cosgrove, Public Works, to
Thank
comment
you.
on that.
Thanks.
Good morning, Commissioner. Director
Yes.
Public Works, J.R. Cosgrove. So as far as the timeline for St. Leonard's Fire Department, we're somewhere around 50 to 75% of the design plans. And they've been sitting.
It's not 80, it's only 50 to 75%?
Well, the reason I say this is because we need to go make some modifications to it to fit within the current budget, because where we were at, the scope was kind of large. So it's a little bit larger than I think we need, and what we've kind of, as the board's decided on the square footage for the fire department.
They have a lot of apparatus, though.
They do have a lot of
An
apparatus.
awful lot.
And we reviewed that with them. So I think we can come to an agreement with them, because they also got a different building committee, so I think they're looking at it slightly different.
Okay.
Because they know kind of what they need. Some of the requests was some larger rooms than I feel is necessarily needed. And the current building committee, I believe, feels the same way. So there still have to be some modifications to the plans. They've also been sitting for about a year, so we'll have to pick those back up and move. So we're probably somewhere around 60%, give or take. But it won't take us long to wrap them up once we all get down on the same page with the building committee. And then once we have that, I would say probably a year from now, we'll have permits, if not sooner. So you might be looking at putting it out for bid sometime around January of next year.
January 27, and
correct.
When will we have a shovel in the ground for them?
I would look at somewhere between 4 to 6 months from down. By the time we go through the actual procurement process of putting it out for bidding, getting a contractor on board.
Midsummer next year.
Correct.
Okay. JR, I have asked some of the other directors to do this for me, because I don't always get the information, and when I'm out there talking with people, I'm just totally at a loss. I want to set up with you monthly to find out how they're progressing, what their response is to any modifications that you are suggesting, because I need to know this. I'm a commissioner, and I don't know this.
Will do.
And information has not been shared. So monthly, I will be calling you, and I will be asking you how St. Leonard is going and how the membership is responding to modifications.
Will do. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Chair, while you're still up there.
Go ahead.
So, we told Solomons we were looking for a shovel and a dirt January of 28.
Correct.
And now we are saying they're not even going to get started till 30. And so I was here when we built both of the places in Prince Frederick. We did the firehouse and the rescue squad at the same time. And we're not shifting that much debt by waiting a year or two, because the way you have to do this, you have to borrow so much of it up front anyway. But what we are shifting is cost. I remember Prince Frederick coming in here, telling that board before I came on that I believe the request was $5 or $7 million. And that board told them, you'll never get $7 million. Well, they didn't. They got what, 12?
For which one? I'm sorry.
For Prince Frederick Firehouse.
No, it
was
was
11.
10 and a half or 11. Something
Okay,
like
but it was probably 50% plus more by making them wait. We have kicked Solomon's and St. Leonard down the road, even when going from my first to when I got elected the second time. So it's 8 years plus, and we're still kicking it because that CIP is written in pencil. I have no desire to move those projects out any further. Every year we wait, the cost goes up more and more and more. And we just had an interest discussion on how things are. Well, I don't know when the cost can go up anywhere from 30 to 50% more that we're going to save that much in interest. I can't vote to move those organizations out to 30 or what have you. I mean, my God, this is 26. We're talking 4 years from now. So much can change at some point. I mean, you've got people.
But remember, fiscal year 30 starts in January of 29.
Okay, so 3 years. So you've already got Solomon's when it rains. They darn near got to empty out the place. I mean, the water runs all over the place. St. Leonard has to leave equipment outside. There's not adequate facilities for people to stay. I mean, these are the people volunteering to come out for us, and we're going to kick it again and again and again. I've watched that for 8 years now. I cannot vote to move those stations out for any further.
So, JR, how long will it take for design work for Company 3?
We
Start to
estimate
finish?
about a year for design and permitting. Then you're looking at probably another between 4 to 6 months for bidding out the job for construction, and then 2 years
year
for
and a half.
construction. Correct.
18 months.
Yeah.
So why not? I mean, I guess the design money is still in there.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Yes. We still
But the construction money, you're kicking it out even a further year than that. Correct? Is that right?
In the plan, we have created space both for staffing constraints and financial constraints. That can be moved up, like you said. It's in pencil. You're only voting when you approve an adopted budget. You are only approving fiscal year 2027.
I get that, but with these type projects, so once you start it, it keeps going, like with schools and everything else. So it's not like it's just a one-time thing. The funding's in different stages. But that's what I'm saying. I don't want to lose a year in funding to wait to go bid on that project.
So Danielle, what's in 29, big projects in 29?
So over the 6-year cycle, we have the sheriff's office, we have the two firehouse facilities, as well as the Harriet E. Brown Community Center, because as the sheriff's office moves towards that space, we will need to relocate the community center space that is currently there. Right now, that is the middle piece. We're splitting up the phasing for the sheriff's office into the beginning of the 6-year plan and the end of the 6-year plan, with the Harriet E. Brown Community Center focusing on the office spaces and the community center spaces first. in those middle years. So we have design for Harriet E. Brown in FY28 with some construction funding in 29 and 30. When we're getting into 30, we're also getting into the detention center, which has requested a very large amount of construction funding, as well as Southern Library.
And in 29, what do you have in there for the sheriff's office? That design? That's design, right?
There is design for the second phase.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. And the school, we don't know what the school schedule is now?
The school will be looking at doing their Calvert Elementary School and Calvert Country School co-location of those two facilities during that time. We'll be coming to the end of Northern Middle School. The end of Northern Middle School funding is next year. I think it's roughly $2 million to finish out the Northern Middle School project. And then they begin on the construction for Calvert Elementary, Calvert Country Schools co-location.
And we
as well as turf fields, including that in FY28 as well.
And what do you know, what's the construction number estimated for the two elementary schools?
So it's going to be one facility, but it's essentially the price of two elementary schools. I would have to look back at my notes. I want to say it's about $50 million.
Just trying to figure out, Commissioner Hart, how much room there is if what we can juggle to
But that's why
make
I like
it work.
that chart out there to where you can see it all.
Yeah.
I've never had to do this where I'm trying to figure out without seeing
my book was
the future, you know.
So
And going back to,
I just want to add one more piece of information. So in addition to trying to fit the funding pieces, we're also looking at the capacity of what we have staff-wise to manage all of these big projects. So that was taken into account when we were phasing in some of these larger projects. So it's
I
not
hear we
just
have way too much staff and they have nothing to do.
Well, as the Director of Public Works and manages all the majority of the capital projects for the county, if you start stacking multiple large projects such as Sheriff's Department to have and two firehouses on my staff of 4 in capital projects, one of them right now is the guy that does the engineering work and oversees the design half, and the other 2 do the inspections with 1 vacancy. It's going to get overwhelming, and good, bad, or otherwise, there could be stuff that gets missed throughout either the design because they're reviewing 2 firehouses at one time along with a sheriff facility, or my inspectors are going to be pulled thin because they can't spend the time needed at one facility. I mean, it takes time to walk a building with a contractor and just kind of make sure they're following the documents as they should and make sure that we can review. You know, once it goes to construction, it's like, oh, well, it's just construction. It's not that bad. But there's a lot of submittals that come in to review every little detail. I mean, down to, you know, the metal between the panels on your diasis, the wood panels, the light fixtures, the ceiling tiles, you know, the track that holds the ceiling tiles. There's a lot that goes into it. When you start stacking all those large projects on top of one another, it's a lot to do and request staff to do in one day. So that's a lot of looking into these projects and phasing them out. It's not just the dollars. Danielle, I'm looking at dollars. I assist with looking at the dollars, but I'm also looking at the strain it puts on the small staff I have in the CIP group.
And that was why when we did the original presentation for staff recommended budget, we had a major capital project section sectioned out in that slide to show how we had phased and spaced out these major projects. When we're talking about Company 7 and Company 3 slotting into those spots, that is taking that staffing into, because these major projects, they're not the only projects his staff is working on. Calvert Pines is in progress. 85 Main Street is in progress. These are new. These are going to be very large and obviously very visible projects, but they're not the only things that his team is working on. So taking that into account, when we did that original phasing, we are trying to keep that original phasing as true as we had it originally, while also making accommodations for what is still needed.
And Commissioner Hart's right. We push products to save money, and then what happens is they all get bunched up and they cost us more money because then you have to keep pushing to get everything
and
smoothed
if I'm at
out.
St. Leonard and I'm seeing that ambulance sitting outside, that $500,000 ambulance sitting outside getting rained on and snowed on, I got to sit around and go, why? And I'll eat it. I mean, hey, I'm an easy dartboard these days. I have tried and tried and tried to get 3 votes to get those projects done, and can't get them. You know, and
that wasn't all our fault because St. Leonard's and Solomon's both wanted to move. You know, we spent what, a year and a half.
Well, COVID
with
put
St.
the brakes
Leonard.
on some. Not making excuses when
No.
COVID came in and the prices went through the roof. I
Yep.
mean that, but
Yep.
But here we are now today, and Solomon's does not have adequate facilities. They just don't. And neither does St. Leonard. And in the sheriff's office, my God, it's over 100 years old. They can't even use some of it. And back to what Commissioner, these projects have been pushed too long, and I can't push them any further. I'm not going to push the funding out. Not my vote. And if and JR, you know I respect your opinion to the T, 1,000%. So I know what you're saying to me is accurate. But these projects, they're written in pencil, and I've just seen this same conversation over and over and over. And 2030 will come, and a new board will be sitting up here, and they'll go, well, you know, we got to do this. These folks need proper facilities. They need the adequate stuff to work with.
Mr. Grasset, you got anything else?
No, that's it for me.
Mr. Ants?
I'm good.
So she needs direction.
So we're requesting direction for the Commissioner's recommended budget public hearing to be held on May 12th.
So moved.
The recommendation to reappropriate county administration building funding to fund some of these projects that we can quickly do, like the Cove Point Lighthouse, Armory Pavilion, and the preliminary design. We will be coming specifically for the preliminary design for the Sheriff's Office. We will be coming to do that on open session this year so they can get started on that. But using the rest of those reappropriations, they'll be outlined in the budget book. And then the volunteer apparatus, using our capital contingency funds to pay for the additional 3 apparatus. And then Company 7, moving design funding up to FY27, keeping Company 3's. And then your direction at whether or not to keep the Company 3 construction currently outlined in 3031 or have it stacked with Company 7's in 28 and 29. That seems to be the point up for conversation.
And that's on the 12th?
The Commissioner's recommended public budget hearing currently is scheduled for May 5th. We are asking to have it moved to May 12th.
And that's when we'll make the final vote then, is that correct?
That's when you would move staff to move forward with an adopted budget.
So when is the final vote on these projects?
The adopted budget would be the beginning of June.
June 9th.
But they got to get the budget book right.
We have to put the book together. We are legally mandated to put that book out. It has to be in the libraries and available online.
I mean, Commissioner Hart, you just heard, I just think practically St. Leonard's is just so far ahead of Company 3 at this time. But I hear you about pushing. I don't know. And as we all know, the further out to get everything is in pencil. If it makes, I'd support putting 7 and 29 and just see how things happen. Hell, there's an election coming. We don't know what's going to happen. So it's just practically speaking, which was my conversation with President Anderson, 7 is just much further along in this process, and it just didn't seem right to push them to 31 or 32, whatever that original thing was.
And I don't want to push 7 either, but what I'm saying is, but look at 3.
If we can look at...
If we go back in time, right, so they were told, not us, but there was delegation at the time that said, I'll never approve you to move. Mm-hmm. That person refused. Mm-hmm. And then finally, that person reversed it and said, well, if you go out and do to the communities, mm-hmm. go out and, mm-hmm. so these volunteers on their own time made a presentation and went out to CRE and Drone Point and all these places and full support from the community. And then that person's gone. Mm-hmm. And then they're sitting there going, we did everything you asked.
Lost all that time.
And lost all that time. Mm-hmm. And so then now here we are again. We give them a presentation. Hey, we're going to start construction January in 28. And now we're moving it again. And if I'm Solomon's, I'm going, what gives? What do we have to do?
And 7's the same way.
And
They're
7,
all the same.
absolutely.
Yep,
And
yep.
if I'm 7 right now, I'm going, wait a minute, we've been kicking this same can. At some point, we just have to get this done. And going back to the sheriff's office, they got places they can't even use in the building. I mean, we're the safest county in the state of Maryland, and these guys don't even have a crime lab that's purely functional. Am I saying that right?
That's
Mr. Brown?
correct.
I mean,
The
it's-
property room, yep.
yeah. I mean, that's got to be corrected. It has to be.
So Daniel, I got one more question. So
Yes,
we
sir.
still keeping $1 million in for Solomon's in FY '27?
That is staff
And that would
that
be
is the
for
staff.
this,
Yes, that is the staff recommendation, is to
current
keep the
site.
million and then add to move forward the 600,000 that we had slated for FY 2030
We're
for
moving
Company
along,
7.
but
not as quickly as. yes.
well, because we've seen design means nothing.
Right.
Ask Seven. Seven will tell you design means nothing because they've watched their time go up
Right,
and down and
right.
up and down, and
I just didn't want to lose that money.
right. Oh no,
For
but
state highway.
no, I don't want us to stop. I don't want us to stop the progress, but at the same point, I know there are stopping points. So you can do design, and a board can say there's stopping point, but once you break ground, there's no stopping point.
Normally.
And so and because we know CIP is written in pencil.
Yep.
So JR, go back to your timelines real quick. You said 18-month timeline basically for Company 3. What was 7's look like?
7's to wrap it up, you're probably looking at, by the time we bid it out from now, you're probably looking at about 12 months because you figure half of that's going to be procuring the contractor for construction.
All right, and build time for each one, what do you figure?
We estimate 2 years. You know, it might end up, depending on the size and type of construction, it might be closer to 18, but I would schedule 24 months.
Okay. All right, thank you. So what Danielle presented, Mark motioned to.
What's a work session?
We're asking for
I
direction.
understand that, but they
The
didn't
motion to
direction.
move to May 12th.
May 14th, that's what, yes.
I'd move 3 up to 29. That'll get them right back to back.
So the direction would be to place the first year of construction for Company 3 in FY 29 instead of 2030.
Yes.
JR, is that realistic though? I mean, like, so I stand here.
He's
and
gonna
beat the
tell you
drum.
no.
I beat the drum for 28. Are you telling me that 28 couldn't be hit no matter what?
There you go, have a seat. You might be there a while.
Yeah, get comfortable. No.
I think I will. It's going to be difficult with the capacity of staff, but let me go back and work with staff to see what we can work out. Like I said, I do have a vacant position in capital projects that we're, working on hiring for, so that would definitely help. And I'd like to think that person would be in place by the time we get to there. But basically what we're being asked to do now, from what I understand, is finish the design of 7, start the design of 3, start the design of the crime lab / property building for 7. We're looking at possibly starting a conceptual layout for the HEB, if I remember correctly.
In FY 28.
Correct. So, and that's on top of what we're currently doing now. Of, we're building a multi-use building pavilion at Ward. We're
Have the
doing work
Armory
on the
Pavilion.
Armory Pavilion. We're doing work on wrapping up the upgrades to Calvert Pine. So, and those are just the ones I can think off the top of my head. And that's not talking about, we discussed earlier about the improvements to Marley Run as far as the erosion there. So that's still with that same group of staff. So it's a lot now, and we're looking at larger jobs. Now, there's some doing design of these larger jobs. It requires monthly meetings outside of normal hours. You generally meet with each department because that's how we ran 7 to date. About once a month, the architect would come down and we'd sit down and go over where we're at and the next stage of the design so we can get the plans wrapped up. Is it feasible and possible? Yes, but it might be difficult.
So right now, the way things are planned, when does 7 put a shovel in the dirt?
About a year from today.
Pretty much.
And then 3 would put a shovel in the dirt when?
Well, if you're looking at it based on how you're planning the funding or when design is over with, you'd be looking at, so we would get design money in July. So you're probably looking at a good 18 months from July before we can even think about having permitting to start Company 3.
So that would put a
That
shovel
would be
in.
January of 2028.
Correct.
18 months from July would be January of 2028.
So that would still put them on schedule for the January and 28, like we
Which would be
originally
FY
told them.
29, right?
No, well, FY '29 would start 6 months later.
Great.
Yes.
So FY '29 would be 6 months later, which would be June of '28. So that's
And I
when
know
we'd have the funding.
we've still been back and forth, so we had hoped to have something signed around October. Here we are, April, so we've lost 6 months.
Right.
So I get that, I understand that. So if we got something hashed out with them in the next few months, realistically, you're saying it's about 18 months from there, is that correct?
For design and permitting, yes.
So this being 26, 27, 28 and change to go out to bid.
Correct.
It'd be January 29.
So I mean, you'd definitely be looking at towards the end of calendar year '28, not the beginning.
Okay. So we would
And
still
that'd be
be
pushing
in
it.
28, we would just be later in 28.
And that would be looking at you funding both the construction of 2 large facilities. at
And
the
that's
same
if we
time,
could
more
get
or less.
something hashed out within the next couple of months.
Correct.
Sound right?
And it would put a lot on the inspection staff. Just throwing that out there.
So Commissioners, the other option JR and I've discussed is the possibility of bringing in engineering. We have on-call engineers, maybe bringing in some project managers from that perspective, just thinking outside the box to complement the staff that we do have just for the peak design period. So we could look into that in third-party review.
But keep in mind, that would probably have to be funded, I say by the project, but I don't somehow like that anyways.
And that cost is generally range of $500,000, million?
It depends. I'd have to get right to scope down and talk to the on-calls, because we got 4 different on-calls. I'd have to go to each one and kind of get a quote and get a kind of defined scope of what I want. But, I mean, you're going to be into tens of thousands, if not, or higher. It depends on what our scope is. If we're looking at just helping doing the review point of permitting, it's a little less. If you start bringing them in through the whole entire project, you'll be in the hundreds of thousands.
But of course, the waiting of 1 year, what does building costs go up then? I mean, does it offset? I mean,
It could potentially. I mean, we start seeing 3 to 5% increases.
They're not getting any
materials.
cheaper.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead.
some buildings come in cheaper, it just depends on the climate at the time when you bid it, if they need work, because this building came in under.
And you got to remember, we're basing our numbers off of engineers' estimates, which are sometimes accurate and sometimes not. Like Commissioner Hand said, I mean, we were estimating this county administration building to be closer to $60 million, and it came down to the mid-50s. But when we bid it out, and furnished it out, we're around $45 million. So there's that.
But sometimes it goes the other way, like Commissioner Hart says.
Most of the time it goes the other way.
So your vacant position, what is it for?
It's a capital project coordinator. So
Okay, so has it been advertised?
It has not yet. And to be honest with you, I've been kind of waiting to figure out where we're at with stacking these CIPs,
Gotcha.
because I really didn't want to fill a position to not necessarily have a full workload.
No, I understand.
So I felt like I was being fiscal responsible by not hiring right now. But based on these discussions, I feel the need that I need to probably move.
Start
or get
exploring
that filled.
that.
Yeah.
Because we got this coming down the road for sure, one way
Correct.
or the other.
You have direction?
Direction to put it in 29 or 28. That is my final question. Final Jeopardy is construction for Company 3 being placed currently in 28 and 29 or 29 and 30.
I'm 28.
The fiscal year 29 starts when?
July 1st, 2028.
Fiscal.
Fiscal year
Calendar-
29
yeah,
would start in
yeah,
calendar
sorry.
year 28
Gotcha.
on July
Yep.
1st.
Yep.
So like JR said, it'd be the end of 28, that's, yeah. Okay.
Got to have a goal.
We already made you tired, yeah.
No.
I was tired when I got here this morning.
Is everybody fine with that?
My vote is
Yeah.
it's fine with me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All your questions.
Mike, you good?
Yes.
Thank
All
you,
right,
JR.
you have direction. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you,
We
Danielle.
appreciate
Thank
it, Danielle. I know it's been a process. You've done a good job with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. I saw your curls get a little tighter. So what was going on?
What, JR's school?
No. Poor Danielle.
So, That takes us to public comment. Madam Attorney?
To maintain the quorum, the Board of County Commissioners adheres to established procedural rules first adopted in 1989 that are applied in a viewpoint-neutral way only to genuinely disruptive or threatening behavior. As an invited speaker addressing topics pertaining to county government, please observe the following guidelines. All remarks and conduct must be respectful and frank and refrain from personal attacks, inflammatory language, or disruptive behavior. Prior to commencing your remarks, please state your full name for the record. Individual speakers are allocated 2 minutes. Designated representatives speaking on behalf of an organization or group are allotted 5 minutes. Individuals seeking to influence governmental decisions are categorized as lobbyists and are required to register with the Ethics Commission prior to their engagement with the board.
Good morning, Patrick Flaherty, Commissioner Candidate, District 1. For more than 8 years, families living near the Cove Point LNG facility have endured constant industrial noise from the liquefaction chillers and on-site power generation. Despite repeated complaints, the county has never put in place any consistent proactive noise monitoring program, no regular measurements, no public data, and no permanent stations to enforce our own decibel daytime and nighttime noise limits. This pattern of reactive, hands-off government is exactly why so many residents are deeply concerned about the current push for data centers. Last February 2025, all 5 of you signed a letter actively supporting legislation, HB 949, to authorize payment in lieu of taxes agreement for data centers. This was happening at the same time the county was amending the 2025 zoning ordinance to make room for them. Yet full scale of these projects, the potential tax deals, and the long-term impacts on water usage, wetlands, energy demand, noise, and our rural character were never fully and transparently explained to the public before these zoning changes move forward. We, the people, the citizens of Calvert County, demand better than that. I respectfully ask the board to support an immediate text amendment that removes all data center language from the 2025 zoning ordinance. Let's do a full clean reset with transparent public hearings and truly independent studies on water, wetlands, noise, traffic, cumulative impacts, and infrastructure strain from day one, not after the deals are already in motion. Calvert County doesn't need more rushed decisions made behind closed doors. We need real transparency and accountability so we can protect the rural character in the Chesapeake Bay that makes this county special for our families and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Patty Stuckler, candidate for Commissioner at Large. I have a map here with me. This is actually the map that Amazon Web Services provided all of the residents at their presentation. In yellow, I've highlighted, after studying this map, there are 20 private residents that are in close proximity to the southern end of this proposed data center complex. The blue highlighted area is a park that's owned by the county. This park actually has a ball field, has a baseball field, it has a soccer field. So my question to you 3 commissioners, Hance, Ireland, and Cox, who said no to a 24-month moratorium. What are you planning to do? Are you planning to have little soccer players, little baseball players play their games right next to massive data centers? Is that the plan? Are you planning on selling this property? Is that the plan? And if so, for how much? We own that property. We, the taxpayers, the county owns it. So how much is that worth? I noticed that on this map, it is comes off of H.G. Truman Road, which is on the southern end, which would give great access to that southern part of the complex, instead of going all the way around to the top to the north. So the county attorney, she noted last week that 6 to 12 months was the average moratorium across the country with all these data centers with counties opposing them. So would you agree to a 12-month moratorium so that we can study, we can get answers to these questions and any other questions and concerns? Would you agree to that? I'm confident that you want the residents of this county to have all the information and to have all their questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carl Elwine, representing the organization Camp Kenoi Residents. Today, I'd like to set the record straight about some misinformation being circulated by some Calvert County government personnel. The public's being told that the land Constellation plans to use for building data centers has been zoned heavy industrial for many years, even decades, even since the 1970s, so it's only logical that it should be used for data centers. This is incorrect. The acreage at the nuclear power plant was zoned industrial when it was built, but a large portion of the surrounding land, over 800 acres, remained forest and farming. Many neighbors live on the borders of this beautiful forested land. So, Constellation has been trying for many years to figure out how to develop these hundreds of acres of forest and farming. When data centers began to be built all around the nation, I believe some at Constellation saw this as a great money-making opportunity, though no thought was given to how that would impact their many neighbors. But I should correct myself. I believe there was great thought given to how neighbors would react because of the manner in which Constellation had the land rezoned. If Constellation had pursued the normal route of rezoning, they would have had to notify all of the neighbors who would be impacted by the rezoning, not just with a notice in a newspaper or a property tax bill, but with individual letters sent to every single neighbor, as well as posting notices on the property itself. This would allow the neighbors to be informed and to enter into an open discussion with Constellation. That couldn't be allowed to happen. I believe Constellation knew that the majority of their neighbors would strongly oppose data centers in their backyards. So they found a legal solution, comprehensive rezoning. With this method of rezoning, the neighbors didn't have to be informed directly. It would be a done deal before the neighbors could do anything about it. Yes, it was legal, but it was unethical and very unneighborly. It would railroad the neighbors into accepting the rezoning to heavy industrial with the explicit mention of data centers. Let me tell you about Constellation's communication method. In October 2025, my neighbors and I were Camp Kenoi neighbors, right? We noticed cameras on Camp Kenoi Road, survey crews, soil sample trucks on the Constellation property behind our homes. We asked the supervisors, what's going on? They didn't say they didn't know. They said they were not allowed to tell us what was going on. I was able to have a meeting with a member of Constellation Property Development Group in November 2025. He assured me everything was fine and we would not be impacted. And at my request, they would begin a communication process with the neighbors. None of that was true. Not a single peep from Constellation until the Amazon open house. I asked that same Constellation representative who was at the Constellation PR booth to consider the impact on the neighbors and place the data centers further away from the neighbors. I followed up with an email request to have an in-person meeting between him and his neighbors at his Constellation office at his convenience. This was in March. He finally set a day and time, then he postponed for a week, and then he canceled the meeting entirely. The Constellation email added one of Constellation's attorneys in the CC. Yes, they are lawyering up. They don't want to have just a friendly, open discussion with their neighbors who would be impacted by the 8+ data centers. They want to railroad the neighbors and all of Southern Calvert County into accepting their plans. Why? Because they're a big, powerful corporation? And because they think they can get away with it? Who knows? Constellation has not been transparent in this process, and they have proven they do not want to be a good neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience? Commissioners, we do have several individuals online who wish to speak. Just to reiterate, please press *5 on your telephone if you would like to speak, or use the raise your hand function on Teams. And I will first call on Caller ending in 6710.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Megan Farringer. I am from Lusby, and I'm speaking as an individual today. Good afternoon, County Commissioners. Lusby has been in a battle of overdevelopment for years, but it's been reignited since 2024. You guys already know this. You knew this when you heard of plans to approve the Lusby Villas by the Planning Commissioners in March of 2024. When chaos broke loose in July of 2024, when Lusby only learned about the concept of the Lusby Villas because there was a physical meeting that was being held in our town at an accessible time and an accessible location for the community to hear about this. Conveniently, in August of 2024, the entire Calvert government had a few plans lined up for Lusby on their plate. Allegedly, the entire Board of County Commissioners signed a confidentiality agreement on August 20th, 2024, with a company that seems to change its name but also be connected to data centers right before the Planning Commissioners approved the final subdivision plans for the apartment complex that was happening in the town center on August 21st, 2024. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought that maybe these two very large projects set to disturb Lusby were interrelated. The problem that Lusby is having is that we are being continued to be sacrificed for tax benefits, while those of us down here see nothing. We just get more traffic, false promises on parks that will be permanently not ours, sidewalks that lead to nowhere, empty storefronts, overcrowded schools, destroyed waterways, noise disruptions that compete with LNG and the base, and more light pollution. Lusby wants to be recognized. Lusby wants to be seen. Lusby wants to be heard. We are tired. We are tired of being used and abused, and we just want to see our commissioners stand up for us, to protect us from big tech, to not sell us out on something that is already showing consistently this year that data centers are not producing what they promised nationwide. Also, the county wants to know, when are we getting those presentations on NDAs that you talked about last month? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next caller, ending in 4485.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Hi, my name is Terry Taylor, and I'm calling from Huntingtown, Maryland as an individual. And last week I called to inquire about our perk season because all of our neighboring counties have opened. And I quickly learned that our perk season was open, but then immediately was confused by what that really means. So last week when I inquired, I was told it was open. Then I was told it's not open for subdivisions. But when I asked if it was open for 2 privately owned residential lots, I was told that Calvert County is only perking existing single lots. When I asked what the definition of an existing single lot was, I was told it was one that had already perked. So obviously I'm confused as to why would you perk a lot that's already been perked. I understand that state regulations allow perk testing during the seasonal high water period, and it seems to me we are at the highest water we've seen in 2 years, so it's not going to change anytime soon. I also understand that state regulations provide for the use of alternative technologies for new construction, and I'd like to explore what that may be in Calvert County. And finally, the COMAR allows LEHS discretion based on soil surveys, sufficient soil information from neighboring lots, and or experience in the area. I'm talking about 2 lots on my own property that are, I don't know, I'm not good with distance, but maybe 100 yards, 200 yards from my house, and 200 yards from other houses in the neighborhood. I know this soil is ready to build. I don't understand why I'm being held hostage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anybody else that would wish to speak, please press *5 now or use the raise your hand function on Teams.
Ashley, get that last caller's number so we can refer her to planning and zoning
I
and the
already
health
did,
department.
sir.
Okay, thank you.
And nobody else has raised their hand.
Okay, thank you. Takes us to commissioner comments. Commissioner Hart?
Thank you, Mr. President. So, obviously last week was a lot going on. It continues, and it will. It won't stop. I had a resident come in to see me. They said, no disrespect, Mike, to you, but I want this map handed to the county administrator on camera because I want to make sure that she received it. And they want me to make sure that you give this to the Calvert County Environmental Commission. They believe that this is off of our maps, that they think off-site A potentially is in Rural Legacy. They think there's some spots in there that we did not have the authority to change the zoning on. So they want that looked at. Also, I said it last week, trust is gone. The only way to do the right thing, there's residents here from Camp Canoy, they're not the only ones. We have to put a stop. I know there's no appetite for 2 years, but as Ms. Stuckler said, what's wrong with a year? Something. I mean, the lines are wrong. Whether however we got there or not, the lines are wrong. 400 feet from a house is too close. With all these questions, I have to please ask again. I want to make a motion that we put a moratorium on exactly what I said before, on the next meeting, to please put this on, procedure, on the next meeting that we meet, to put this on for at least explore a year moratorium then. If I can't get 2 years, but that line's got to get redrawn. There's no way. There's no way. It has to get redrawn, and we need to explore, as the resident said, then how we came about that zoning. If we did not follow the normal process that we would for every other project, then we have to own that, and we have to go back and do it the way that everything else would be done. If we did not do the proper process to where the public notice went out to the residents so they had a chance to respond like every other project would, then we're wrong. We got to own it, and we got to fix it. No one's been harmed yet. So before anybody gets harmed, we have to do the right thing. So my motion is to please respectfully, on the next meeting, that we explore not only that year moratorium, but also, as the resident brought up, did we improperly do that zoning? As he say, it may be illegal, but I don't play the legal thing. You know, I'm more important on the morality of it. If we were wrong, I've had to sit up here and apologize 1,000 times, and apparently I'm still apologizing for things. But we're only wrong if we don't fix it. So if we did it wrong, we need to explore. If we did not do the right process, we need to make sure that whether a big corporation or a small person is treated equally the same way across the board. And that's my motion for the next meeting.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Motion denied. Do you have any other comments, Commissioner?
Nope, that's it.
Commissioner Cox?
Thank you, Mr. President. Please keep in your prayers the Connor family who lost a loved one this week. Keep them in your prayers. Got a Annapolis update. Session closed last night. We had 7,000 bills that was introduced in Annapolis this year. I'm glad to report that all but one of our bills got through session. The excise tax for caregivers did not make it through, but all the others did. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Grasso?
I'm working something up. Hang in there. Okay. On the 8th, I attended, I went to Sleepy Hollow Daycare, the directors meeting, and met with in-home providers and data center providers. I went to the health department's open house on the 9th, and yesterday I attended the Knights of Columbus blood drive. They hit a record. They achieved 10,000 units of blood in April of this month. The blood drive began in July of 2000. I attended the historic milestone. You don't get a cookie there when you donate blood. You get your choice of a sandwich. It was great. And I want to thank them for all they've done and all they continue to do. I know I've asked Marty and I've asked Dick Myers to do a little article on this. And they are to be commended. They do these things a couple times a year, provide a great service to the county. Started because of a child in Calvert County who had a need, and the Knights band together and they made it happen, and they continue to make it happen. I want to talk, just a comment about one other thing. When I first came on as a commissioner, we talked about the rule of five, the elusive rule of five, where each commissioner would know what the other commissioner knew. I have found that rule is on a need-to-know basis. And President Ireland, you have the opportunity to turn this ship around and make sure the five of us know every damn thing that is going on in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hans.
So, last Tuesday night, I attended the Solomon Civic Association meeting. They had about 40 or 50 people there, I guess, that night. It was a very good meeting. We talked about data centers, of course. But that night, I found out the Solomon's Fire Department is hosting the Southern Maryland Convention the last weekend in April. And on Sunday, they're going to have their parade from 12 to 2, I think. It starts at 12. It'll end whenever. But if you have children that like fire equipment, you should definitely go. The parade's going to start, from the south end of the island and come north. So anywhere there along the Main Street drag would be a good viewing point. But they should have lots of apparatus there that day for viewing, and it'll be a great event for Solomon's. Also, Saturday night, went to a church dinner at the Waters Memorial Church, had a beef dinner. It was excellent. Had a good crowd at the dinner that night. And I think that's all I've done since last Wednesday. Just want to talk a little bit about, we had a discussion earlier about bond rating. There are lots of factors that go into the bond rating, of the AAA bond rating. And as I mentioned earlier, when talking with Commissioner Hart, for years since I've been here, they've always talked about how our ratio of commercial tax base to residential tax base is out of whack, and that we have to diversify our commercial tax base and find other avenues of revenue, or the only thing we have left is to tax our citizens, because long term those commercial tax bases through depreciation generally go down. And so they've always talked about that to us. And the issue of data centers, we continue to hear that it was a secret and nobody knew it was coming, but that's not completely true, because Marty Madden, sitting right here in the front row, he wrote a newspaper article in the paper a year and a half ago or more that said Constellation was looking for a partner to build data centers. There's been legislation in Annapolis to address utility cost of a data center at Constellation and how they pay for their electrical power. So there has been discussion, and it didn't just happen 2 months ago. And we never signed an NDA with Amazon. We've never made any deals for anything with any of our clients. We did sign an NDA with Nutelli and their partner at that time, Rowan. And I think those have since expired several months ago. So, but the key is, I keep hearing backroom deals. You made all these backroom deals. We haven't made a deal with anybody for a data center. Not one. No tax incentives, no incentives. The question came up at this Solomon Civic negotiation. Well, if you're not giving them a tax break, what incentives did you give them? We haven't given them anything. Nothing. They're going to pay their full load of taxes. And people say, well, what is that going to be? The county's going to lose money. The county's not going to lose any money on a data center project. The personal property tax from a data center on a $1 billion valuation works out to like $15 million a year in net revenue to the county. They pay all their costs. There's no way the county can lose money. We're not paying for any infrastructure. We're not paying for anything for them. And we heard about aquifers from the very get-go, about all this water they use. First thing we did was put in a proposal for a text amendment to ban the use of aquifers for cooling. What we've learned since through all this process is that the new technology, they barely need any water at all. Amazon, in fact, says in 2 to 3 years, they're not going to use any water for cooling. The technology is going to change that much. People are concerned about power. We're all concerned about power. There's definitely, in the 13-state PJM region, a shortage of power. I think Constellation has a plan. I read about a magazine article where Constellation has a plan to increase production of power. Enough increase in production to cover the data center projects that we currently have being proposed. So, there are pieces of this puzzle, and Constellation doesn't say anything more to us than they're saying to anybody right now, because I think they're under an NDA. So, we're all kind of frustrated with this process because, as you all mentioned, Constellation's been talking with Amazon for years and just started to bring us into the loop. And when I was president, anything I knew, I explained at every meeting after I learned it. So, and if anybody has questions, all they have to do is ask. There's somebody out here to give you an answer or find the answer for you. So, I think that we've talked about text amendments people are concerned about. I talked to someone last night on the phone, and they said, I said, they've been building data centers for 30 years. And this person said, no way. Yes. Been building data centers for 30 years in this country. In Virginia, in the state of Virginia, there are over 450, and in Loudoun County alone, there's over 225. And so this is not new. The new thing is that every time they build one, they learn something new, and the technology changes, and they get better at mitigating the issues. So, I think that's where we are today. None of us want to see data centers if we didn't need revenue. And Lusby, I understand, but the issue in Lusby is that the nuclear power plant is there, the water that they need currently is there, and that's what makes Lusby so attractive. Some people have said, well, put them in Dunkirk. Well, that doesn't work because the two things they need aren't available in Dunkirk. So it's all about. Delegate Mark Fisher was at our legislative hearing in October of 2024. In his comments, Lusby is the perfect place for data centers. It will be a boon to the taxpayers in Calvert County. So this has been around for at least 2 years in discussion. But if we're making a motion in Commissioner comments today, I would make a motion that we enact a policy that before any data center gets a building permit, they have to sign an agreement with us. And in that agreement, we can cover such things as these issues that arise that we don't feel are adequately covered. We can work through that in the agreements. People have talked about enforcement. The enforcement that we currently have is inadequate. We can address that in an agreement. The noise levels we can address in agreement because we do have to be a little careful about, certain activities that we currently have in this county sometimes do operate in the 60 decibel range. And if we can get data centers below that, I am concerned that if you make a blanket change to reduce the decibel levels for sound, it can have unintended consequences for other activities. But I guess I should discuss my motion if I get a second.
Second.
Question on sound. So Montgomery County just themselves got rid of gas-powered leaf blowers because of the sound. They're one of the most restrictive counties in the state of Maryland when it comes to things of that nature. Mm-hmm. So are you saying that you would be willing to say during business hours, the noise level would be this, but on weekends and nights, it would be 0. I mean, they have restrictions that tight because you could put a sound ordinance in, and let's say it's 55, 60 decibels, whatever that is, but it's 2 o'clock in the morning, it's still going. I mean, these things don't have an on and off switch. So what is going to be a decibel level that is somebody's house is 400 feet away that they're not going to hear it 24 hours a day? What is that? Because I don't know what that is.
Well, if you want to talk about Montgomery County also defeated a proposal to ban data centers completely. So as progressive as Montgomery County is, they're not willing to ban data centers completely from their county. And the day we took the tour to Ashburn, Virginia, when we got out of the car, it just so happens there was a leaf blower going at that time, and that's all you could hear. And once the leaf blower quit, it got quiet.
So would they have their own decibel level that they would have to adhere to, opposed to?
That's something we can flush out in the agreement.
So, and that's just one of many. What about moving the buffer back?
That's another thing we can talk about.
I mean, I obviously, because I'm beating this dead horse to death, and what is so frustrating is, no disrespect to you guys, you'll live there. It's not in your, it's not where you live, and the folks that live there already gave blood on Dominion.
And we haven't seen a site plan yet, Commissioner Hart, to know where they're going to be located, how close they're going to be.
Well, there's the one circulating, that print that was even, that was the MDE one that shows the 8 buildings. I mean, that's...
And what was the closest one to a house?
It's 400 feet, isn't it? Isn't that
know.
what it is?
Yeah,
it's 400 feet. So I can talk 400 feet. We've all heard my mouth. I can talk 400 feet, so I can't imagine what a thing would do. So, I mean...
I'm just trying to provide a vehicle.
If I may, Commissioner Haynes, with respect to your motion as stated, that would be a change in the ordinance, and you would need a public hearing to make that happen?
Which part?
The part where you wanted to put in place asking that the whoever wants to come into for a data center would need to first have an agreement with the county commissioners, or with the county rather. So that is a change to the ordinance, which will require a public hearing.
Well, we'll do whatever we have to do.
So are you going to restate your motion, or you want to withdraw your motion?
Well, while we're having discussion, I have something to say. I don't consider it beating a dead horse. I consider it taking into account conversations I've had with constituents. And we have to protect people. The low-level sound, there's a very big concern over that. And there's studies done on that. How do we get around that? I mean, we all 5 need to have the same information, be in agreement with the information, and we have to provide it to our people. We have to protect them because they are fearful of some things associated with data centers. It is incumbent upon us that we listen, we take it into consideration, and address it. That's our job.
And when we have a site plan and they have a building design, there's going to be more clarity about what those responses are.
So is there nothing issued in your motion? Is there nothing issued? So a data center comes in, and this is the proposal. They get nothing issued.
They can't get their final building permit.
They don't get no grading permits. They get nothing. There's no groundbreaking, nothing taking place, because I've been around too. So everything is stopped until all questions are satisfied. As you said, the public knows all these questions, and they're all satisfied. And then once everything's satisfied, then the process starts? Or are they allowed to just keep going and then, well, okay, this part was off, check that off, check that off. So it really doesn't impede the project as far as timeline. Is that what that motion does?
They have to submit a site plan and start that process. The two can work together.
but they're allowed to keep progressing during the, so I don't know what teeth it has. Because, okay, so they're doing that as they're going along, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But if they can't get, are you saying that if they can't get to one of the things on here, then that permit will be denied?
It's a process of working together, Commissioner Hart. Once you have a site plan to address the issues that particular site plan raises.
Okay, so something's real easy. So let's say the buffer is 2,000 feet. Say that's what is the proper way to negate the noise. That's easy, okay? But what if one of the other is, and I don't know, that's why I have all my questions, where this low-level hum still is heard. Are we going to say, well,
I don't know how you can ever impose that it's dead quiet. The LNG facility is not dead quiet. The nuclear power plant is not dead quiet.
but the nuke plant's not near anybody? And
The
that's
LNG facility is.
It sure is, 868 feet.
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
what's been my heartburn the whole time, that anything, no matter what it is, it can't be in residential. And that was my intent. Nobody believes me, and they're not paid to believe me. That was my intent with the zoning, is that I thought if one day these things ever came, that this would ensure it would never be near a residence, and we wouldn't be having this discussion, whether it's me or it's 10 years from now on another board, going back to what I learned going through the apartment process with the high density. The things were not put in place, the guardrails weren't put in place. Then it came in, how many times has the verbiage been, well, it was already grandfathered 25, 30 years ago? Is a data center place going to go, well, you didn't put any of these rules in, and I'm grandfathered from 30 years ago, or whatever it gets construed. So that, how do you put true enforcement in there if they can't even get started until they satisfy everything?
The intention is that's the purpose of the document, Commissioner Hart, is to get all that worked out.
But they're allowed to keep going until they get to there. And that could be very
You
subjective.
have to work through the process to flush those things out.
So what would be so wrong with getting all their paperwork in, everything, getting the public's questions answered, whatever questions this board would come up with, and once they've satisfied everything, I mean, just like when I go for my liquor license, they don't let me, when I do that business, they don't let me keep working until I've satisfied everything for the license. I have to have all my questions answered. I had to have signatures from the community. I had to have all the things in place that before they even issue me. I couldn't even get product delivered till I had through the fire marshal, UNO, and everything like that.
So I think this discussion here we're having is Commissioner Hans is saying we got to get to that conceptual plan to take it to the planning commission. So if we have to move a building to get to the final site plan, that's where the mitigation would come. Because without a site plan, and if you don't go through the review, how are you going to get to the final plan? We need to see a conceptual plan to see if we need to move one, if we need to mitigate this one. And then that's when you get to your final approval. And I think that's we have to see a site plan.
So they come in with the site plan.
Yep.
Okay,
So they go through the conceptual plan, they go through the planning commission.
What permits in their hand at that point?
Nothing.
Nothing's in there.
Nothing.
Okay,
Nothing's in their hand.
so
It's a conceptual
site plan comes
that
in,
goes to the planning
conceptual
commission.
plan comes in.
If I may, Commissioners, once again, to reiterate, that's not permitted currently in the ordinance, and you would need a public hearing to make that happen with the motion that's stated.
Okay, so do you want to amend your motion for a process?
No, I'll withdraw for now. I want to see what the process is.
See, it goes back to my moratorium thing for all of these things. For a brand new business, a brand new thing.
Will you agree to a citizen advisory committee?
What does it do? I mean, if it doesn't ensure that all the health risks are mitigated, then what teeth does it have?
But nothing ensures that all health risks are mitigated.
Well, an
Nothing.
independent EIS statement goes a long way.
Nothing. Everything we build in this county has health risks.
Well, but I think you can
Everything.
but you can mitigate risk.
And maybe they can.
So,
Till you get a site plan, you don't know.
but County Attorney, you said it doesn't work that way.
Currently in the zoning, like I noted before, the zoning ordinance is permitted to do what Commissioner Hans is proposing or like to propose. It will require a public hearing and discussion with respect to that.
So can we agree that there's an immediate stop on any data center thing right now till we can get Jason in here, county attorneys in here, and start mapping out?
No, because if you don't have a site plan, you don't know.
Yeah, but right now, if you say no, there's no harm, no foul. I mean, if
You
you
don't,
say,
hey, you
if
don't learn
if we go-
anything.
If we go back,
Well, then you don't learn anything.
But if you go back to the original zoning that we changed and just take data centers out of it, then you can go ahead and proceed with all of this trying to informational knowledge or whatever, and you don't have to worry the risk.
I think we're beyond that.
All right, so Commissioner Hans rescinded his motion, so
Yep.
let's,
And so you don't even want to support a citizens advisory?
I want to support anything
That-
that keeps.
I'm just
citizens
asking a
safe.
yes or no question.
That's not a yes or no. It is not. It is not. Because that was taken off the table, okay, and how we got here. The whole process is broke of how we got here. And all I'm trying to do is hit a reset button to make it right. That's it. That's all it is. I'm not throwing rocks at anybody. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. But what I'm saying is these citizens are fearful right now. And I can't tell them that they shouldn't be. And nobody up here can tell them that either. Nobody up here can tell them that with the professional knowledge. And all I'm saying is give them the opportunity to get this information. We have always said we would never do anything without public support.
Well, when we get a site plan, that'll happen.
If I may, Commissioners, we're going beyond the scope of the
of Commissioner
Commissioner's report.
comments.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if we could get back to the agenda, if this is something that the
Okay.
board desires to put on a future agenda.
I agree.
To put notice to the public that this is going to be discussed, then I would advise that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I attended Health and Safety Fair on April 9th. A lot of resources are available out there. I'll tell you, from mental health to environmental health to dietary to the crisis intervention team, CIT, that responds with the sheriff's office to calls. They were there. But there's a lot of resources there. That's what I'm getting at, folks. If you know anybody that's having issues, any type of problems, if you're concerned for somebody, refer them. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of resources there. Hospice has 2 events coming up. The first one's May 2nd, the Cindy Horseman Walk for brain cancer, And the second one is they have a Boots and Bling event on May 8th at the Rod and Reel. That's a very huge culinary event. If you want a good evening out to support hospice, I would highly recommend that. Wars Memorial had a roast beef dinner the 11th. I attended that. You know, earlier we talked about our CIP projects. There's a lot of moving parts there. Danielle did a good job putting it all together for us. But the sheriff's office is slated to go on Dares Beach Road where the Harry Elizabeth Brown Community Center is now. That's the only community center we have in Prince Frederick, and we've actually looked for another space to be able to have a community center temporarily to move forward with the sheriff's office. That's how bad they need a building. However, we can't find anything. And the Harry Elizabeth Brown Community Center is slated to go on the old Walton Farm, which is on Fairground Road, as soon as you turn off at Dares Beach Road. We're looking at phasing that project so that we can make things work to get the sheriff's office moving along. We are going to start with the sheriff's office because they are in dire need of having the crime lab as well as better property room than what they currently have now. So we're going to phase that project as well. So that building, as you know, is where Smeco was, where Harry Elizabeth Brown Center is a pretty significant lot back there. So we can actually put that building on that lot at phase one, hopefully, and then moving to the sheriff's office at the same time, moving into the Harry Elizabeth Brown Community Center. As J.R. Cosgrove alluded to as well, we got to be careful when planning these projects. It's not just about the money side of things. It's about having those employees be able to look over the building of these CIP projects. Like I said, there's just a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of money. I mean, you're looking at $180 million over 3 to 4 years that we're investing in these projects. But there again, we talk about kicking the can. Well, we kick the can down the road on a lot of things, and with 45 to 50% roughly increase in building materials since COVID, it's going to cost you double what it is, or what it would have cost prior to COVID, and those prices are continuing to increase. But I want to thank everybody for watching today, and Mr. Cox, do you have a motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I move to recess to executive session pursuant to general provisions, Article Section 3-305B, 1I, to discuss appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of an appointee, employee, or official over to whom the board has jurisdiction. 1II, to discuss other personnel matters that affects one or more specific individuals. 8, to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals pending or potential litigation. 4, to consider a matter that concerns a proposal for a business or industrial organization to locate, expand, or remain in a state.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to move to executive session pursuant to all the provisions that Commissioner Cox mentioned. Is there any conversation, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.